some special things we're going to break down. Ashton Jeanty, man, there's a lot of talk, about Ashton Jeanty. Some people saying he had an ass year, right? Didn't live up to the expectations of a Saquon Barkley, right? But we're going to break down why he's an elite running back, why he has elite traits, and what those traits are. And I can't believe I don't have a hat on. What the hell? Not too many times I come on without a hat. What the hell's going on here? But shout out to the people in the building. We're going to break that down. Does Maxx Crosby have a higher potential of being the rookie defensive player of the year with the pieces he has around him, with Robbie Leonard, his best friend, being the defensive coordinator? What are his chances? Are they higher or lower? We're going to break into that. And then we have a new segment we're going to break down called Hit It or Quit It, right? Sometimes that good, you want to hit it. Sometimes, if it's that Reggie, you just want to pass on it, right? And quit it. So we got a new segment coming up, Hit It or Quit It. I'm going to ask you some questions and then give me your take, right? Would you hit it or quit it? So that'll be later on. But first, let's get to the title, the thumbnail. Fernando Mendoza to the White House, or not to the White House, right? So we all heard the Fernando Mendoza interview after the practice, right? He was up on stage and, he said he has the calendar, doesn't really have the calendar. He didn't know he has to check the calendar, which sounds to me of a kid that, hasn't really told a lie before and didn't want to be, honest. But were the Raiders involved with him not going to the White House? Was it a diss on the White House and the president? Or did the young man, just truly and genuinely want to be at unmandatory camp yesterday, I guess, throwing the football around? We're going to break that down. Your thoughts on, the White House scenario. My thing and my take is I absolutely love it, man. I love the fact, that he's team focused, that he's teammate focused, that he's organization focused, and that he's Fernando Mendoza focused, right? This kid is, young man, 22 years old, talks like he's, 35, way ahead of his time. And the Raiders have a steal, man. We have a good one. We have a real one in the building. And I love the fact that he's all business, right? No business decisions have to be made with Fernando Mendoza. It's all business. Whether he has a, 15, 20-year career, 10-year career or not, the kid's going to have, a huge, amazing life in front of him. So I love the fact that his character is all about ball, man. It's all about film study. It's all about getting better. Tom Brady went out and said, he's a guy that Tom Brady and Spytek both said he's a guy, he's like a machine, right? Like a robot. He knows what he has to do and how he has to do it, right? So those are traits that you don't usually get even drafted first overall, right? So, I like it. It's all business. Whether it was a diss to the White House or not, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like the president, but our president, Donald Trump, tried to, make a statement about he was in spring training, which I do believe is a baseball term, not a football term. So shout out to the president, for keeping up with the local times and with the greatest sport on earth, right? Football. So he tried to act like he knows it, says Mendoza's a big fan of the president, which if he was a big fan, I'm sure he would have found a way to be there, but that's neither here or there. And, not for me to talk about. That's just my opinion. So I love the fact, like I said, that this kid is all about ball, man. It's business first. He knows what he has to do. He's on a mission, and that mission is to be the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders for many, 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 many more moons to come, right? And I am excited. I am tickled pink. He don't have to be top 10. He don't have to be top 5. He don't have to be Peyton Manning or Joe Burrow. He just needs to be Fernando Mendoza. That's all we need him to be. There's a viral video going around, at least at Raider Nation, of, him throwing one pass, perfect spiral, great rotation on the ball, right? No flopping around. And you can go back and watch highlights from other quarterbacks. A lot of them don't throw tight spirals like that. So the nation's pumped. Everybody's fired up. I'm fired up. Are y'all fired up? Speaking of y'all, chat lives matter. Who's in the building? Robert Pena. I'm sure you came and gone. Appreciate you, OG. Greg Brewer in the building. What's good, my guy? What's good? Jack Gustapa. What up? What up? How you doing today, my brother? Chronicles of the Black Hole. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. Appreciate you pulling up, my guy. Ashton Jeanty will have an O line. Maxx is gonna come out on fire. Let's go. Let's go. So yeah, stick around for the segment. We'll break that down and talk about it. Well, let's get into the next topic, right? The next topic, and that is Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, right? So there was, a little bit of debate on another channel. Excuse me, I'm dying over here. Whew. Start the live choking. If I pass out, call 911. Man. I don't know what just happened, but anyways, yeah. So there was a little talk, going back and forth. Did Ashton Jeanty have an ass year? Did he have an elite year? Did he have an okay year? Was it just right? A lot of people are saying that when it comes to the running backs, around the league, that 1,000 yards is not really special anymore. And I totally disagree with that. 1,000 yards is still the quota, is still the benchmark, right? You can move the goalpost as much as you want, but 1,000 yards is still and always has been that benchmark to see if you're, on that top tier of running backs, right? Not everybody has 1,000 yards. Some guys, 2 years ago, I mean, our highest running back had, I think, 400 yards. So, you know what I'm saying, right? We had 3 running backs in the building, and the highest had 400 yards. So, to get 975 yards as a rookie is not an easy task. It's not an easy feat. And I'm still dying over here. I really can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. Whew. Lord have mercy. All right. So, based on some numbers that I looked at and pulled up, right? In the last 10 years, since 2016, I think that number is wrong. I might be wrong on that number. But, anyways, since 2016, rookie running backs that have had 1,000 yards, and it stops at 2025 draft. So, 2016 to 2025, running backs who have had over 1,000 yards their rookie season. Ezekiel Elliott in 2016 had 1,631 yards. Now that's a pretty good comparison and kind of a nice little comp to Ashton Jeanty. If you think about, his bulldozing style, running style, low center of gravity, right? Not a bad little comp there, right? Ezekiel Elliott had 322 rushing attempts. 322. Ezekiel Elliott also had the number 1 ranked offensive line. Raider Purple was good in the building. But Dallas had the number 1 offensive line ranked that year, according to my research, right? Next on that list of running backs that have had 1,000 yards their rookie season is the great Leonard Fournette. In 2017 had 1,040 yards. Next on that list is, of course, Saquon Barkley. 2018 had 1,307 yards. Now, if any of these stats are wrong, feel free in the comments to let me know. And the fourth is Josh Jacobs, who had 1,150 yards, while others like Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, Bijan Robinson all had over 1,000 all-purpose rushing and receiving yards, but they did not exceed the 1,000-yard mark, right? Now, if we look at Leonard Fournette, he had 268 attempts for those 1,040 yards. That's 25, that's 65 yards more than Ashton Jeanty, right? With pretty much the same amount of carries. But his offensive line was ranked 15th in the league at the time. Now, Saquon Barkley's offensive line. Let's read each one. So, okay, we'll read each one in a minute. But anyway, Saquon Barkley offensive line was ranked 21, right? 21st in the NFL. That's not great, and it's definitely elite for the season he had. Over 2,000 yards from the line of scrimmage, 1,300 yards rushing, right? Our own Josh Jacobs with the Oakland Raiders had the 14th ranked offensive line in the NFL. Ashton Jeanty surpassed his numbers and holds the record for rookies all time with the Raiders for yards from line of scrimmage, right? So, 14th overall offensive line. Now, Ashton Jeanty's offensive line was ranked 32nd in the NFL. 32nd. That is dead last. Dead last, right? Receiving wise, Saquon Barkley had 91 receptions for 721 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott had 32 receptions for 363 yards, 1 touchdown. Ashton Jeanty had 55 receptions for 346 yards with 5 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs had 20 receptions for 166 yards with 0 touchdowns. And I think up until last year, he still didn't have a receiving touchdown in his career, if I'm correct. Leonard Fournette had 36 receptions for 302 yards with 1 receiving touchdown. Total touchdowns for each, Saquon Barkley had 15. Ezekiel Elliott had 15. Ashton Jeanty had 10. Josh Jacobs had 7. And Leonard Fournette had 10 as well. And those were, I believe, all on the ground except 9 of those. Now, so Ashton Jeanty did not quite crack the 1,000 yard mark, right? But he finished with 974.5 yards, 75. However, his advanced matrix paint the picture of a historic do-it-all workload completed under the worst blocking conditions in the league, right, at 32. The table below will compare Jeanty's data across the same categories as the 4 running backs from each one of those decades. And I just read you the stats, the rushing yards. He was off the lowest one, right? And the names that didn't make the list as rushing yards for 1,000 yards. Jeanty had 266 carries as a rookie, nearly identical to the volume of Leonard Fournette and Barkley, proving he's an immediate threat and a true workhorse back, right? All 3 downs can do it all. Historically, after contact resilience, an outstanding 80% of Ashton Jeanty's rushing yards, 780 out of his 795 came after contact. After contact. So if he doesn't have an elite trait, how does he have this elite number as a rookie with the worst offensive line in the NFL? 80% of his rushing yards came from after contact. This blows past Barkley's 2018 metrics, meaning Jeanty was hit almost immediately upon taking a handoff on a regular basis. He led the league with 43 missed tackles. With the league worst trenches. Unlike Ezekiel Elliott, who enjoyed the NFL's best offensive line, Jeanty ran behind the worst unit, ranked 33, dead last in the NFL. The line's inability to get push explains why the standard yards per carry sat at only 3.7. even though this individual effort after contact was elite, right? Elite, 80%. Look at the passing game production. Saquon, Saquon had his elite historical rookie year in 2018. Ashton Jeanty actually broke the franchise record for yards per scrimmage, as we talked about, with a massive volume of contact. So that's pretty elite numbers, right? That's pretty elite numbers. So to say the kid had an ass rookie year, I think is crazy. Now we've done film breakdown on this channel. There's also other channels like 805 and the War Room over there that do breakdowns. There's also the Tape Don't Lie, right? Everybody has their own breakdown. Navy Vet, what's good, my guy? Good to see you in the building. I know you've been grinding at work. What's up, Jason Ruiz? I see you. Brandon, I see you. I don't see you no more. Bye. What's good, my guy? What's good, my guy? So yeah, those are elite numbers from a young man that was running behind the worst. I repeat, the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. Now, are those numbers going to change? Yes, and we'll talk about that um, here in a bit. I believe Ashton Jeanty has fewer carries with more production. What do I mean by more production? Right? I believe he has over 1,000 yards rushing on less carries this year, and still has around the same, possibly even more. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 500-600 yards, just because he's probably going to get a lot of receptions out of the backfield early on to start the season. Now you add Mike Washington in there, that's going to come in and take some of those reps and some of those carries away. Possibly Roman Himby, right? Connor Hayward, I don't know how many carries he's going to get, maybe goal line and short yardage situations, right? So that's going to take the workload off of Ashton Jeanty. He's also been out there, working with his hands, right? Putting in that work. So his vision's getting better. Now, we talked about it on this channel before, watching the film. There were many plays where you're like, man, if he would have just bounced that inside, and instead of trying to, race to the outside when there was already three people right in front of him, right? Or, if he would have just made one more cut or just had a little bit more of patience and let the hole open up before he tried to, bounce it to the outside and run into the tight end, run into the tackle, right? There were a lot of those situations. But he was also, again, on the worst offensive line in the NFL. So if you're thinking your cutback lane is going to be open and it's not, right? Now you have to think on the fly. And I believe with the pressure of how bad the team was, you could see them on the sideline sitting there, head down, moping, right? Nobody was happy. It was a bad year. It was a horrible year for everybody. There was controversy. There was two offensive line coaches, right? Was he going to get to stand up? Was he going to get to bend down? There was a lot going on with Ashton Jeanty. It looked like, a couple times he limped off the field, but then was right back out there, right? So I don't know if he was injured or had injuries, but it looked for a couple of those weeks, it didn't look like he was fully healthy. But there was no talk about it. But we seen him limp off the field, right? And you wrap it up and go back out there. So we know the kid's tough. We know he's durable, and he has elite traits. Those elite traits are not being able to tackle this man with a safety or a slot guy. You're not going to be able. You can't tackle this man one-on-one unless, like, even the defensive tackles found out, right? Most of the time he was hitting the backfield, it took two guys to get him down. So he's not going to waste a lot of yards, right? He's very very precise with his feet, where he knows when he wants to go. He can put his head down and go. He's strong enough to get those short yardage if he needs to. And I believe under Kubiak and having the same offensive coordinator, now this is a big part, having the same offensive coordinator and head coach for the entire season with an offensive line coach like Rick Dennison, who's going to open those cut lanes, right? They're going to run that white zone, and they're going to, practice over and over again. Okay, this is the cut lane. This is when you cut it back. This is when you bounce it outside, right? This is when you bend it inside. And this is when sometimes you just have to go, right? I think a lot of that's going to change. So I expect his production to go up and his carries to go down. But let me know what y'all think. How y'all feel about it? Do you think his numbers will do better? But I keep hearing this talk about he doesn't have elite traits, and if you watch the film, and maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Um, when you watch it though, right? He does have that burst, man. He's has that burst. It's not you're not running, outrunning these 4-3 guys on the edge, but you're pretty much outrunning everybody else. You're just as fast as most safeties. You're, faster or, close to most linebackers, right? Some of these linebackers have elite speed nowadays, right? Running in those 4-3s. But he's quick enough. He's quick enough and he's strong enough that if you're coming up behind him and trying to tackle him, with an arm tackle or a leg tackle, he's just gonna roll right through guys. So Rosetown in the building, what's good, what's good. So I expect big things from Ashton Jeanty. I expect big things from Mike Washington as well, because he's a guy that most of his yardage comes from those big plays, right? He had two other backs he shared time with. You also had a quarterback that, kept the ball a lot on those RPOs when he probably should have handed it off. But that's neither here nor there. So a lot of times, he didn't get the ball, and he didn't have a lot of carries for the yardage he had, right? Didn't have 1,000 yards in college, but he didn't get a lot of carries. He just had a lot of big plays. So I expect him to do the same thing with the Raiders. Rosetown in the building. What's good, my guy? Appreciate you. Hey, what's good? What's good? What's good? So, yeah, man. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. What do you think Ashton Jeanty is? Do you think he has a better year? Do you think he has the same amount of targets? I just don't see him touching the ball, 260 something times this year. Just doesn't seem like the direction the Raiders want to go or should be going. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the offensive lines, right? Seattle's offensive line last year, right? A team that I keep saying, it took a couple of weeks for them to get rolling, to figure out, their identity, who they were as a group and as a unit, and come together and trust, everybody's going to do their 111. And you don't have to worry about the other man missing his assignment, and you trying to pick his assignment up and making you look like that was your assignment, right? Because that happened a whole lot for us on the Raiders. But last year, wait, is this last year? All right, where was it? All right, so in 2024, right? In 2024, the Seattle Seahawks had um, a first round pick at left tackle and cross. They also had um, um, a left guard in Lincoln Tomlinson, first round pick, right? And then they had a second round pick in Connor Williams. They had a fourth round pick in Anthony Bradford. And then they had Stone Forsythe. We all know about Stone Forsythe, right? So they had Stone Forsythe, a UDFA, and then they also had a little bit of George Fant. I do believe that came from the Texans the year before, right? Their backups were Christian Hayes, a third rounder, Oli Awatami, a fifth rounder, and Michael Jarrell, a sixth rounder, right? So a sixth rounder, a fifth rounder, a third rounder in 2024. They had two first rounders on the left side, a second, a fourth, and some UDFAs on the other edge, right? So not a lot of first, second round picks on their offensive line. That offensive line with Gino, wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the greatest. So Clint Kubiak comes to town, right? Offensive coordinator, our new head coach. He keeps Charles Cross. They let um they let Tomlinson walk in free agency, I do believe. They pick up another first rounder in Gray Zabel, and they move him to the left guard position. They go get a center that was a fifth round pick, which they had one that was a second round pick, right? So they let him go. They go get Oluwutami, which wait, I believe was on the roster. Yeah, he was on the roster as their backup center the year before. So they move him from the backup center, a fifth round pick, right? They move him up to the center position. They get Christian Haynes in 2024 was a 81st pick overall, third round, and they get right tackle Abram Lucas, another third round pick, 72 overall. So now on their offensive line, they have a first round, a fifth round pick at center, a third, and a third on their offensive line. They make it to the Super Bowl, right? A lot of people are looking at this Raiders offensive line going, man, I just don't trust this offensive line. I don't know if we have those guys, right? But we have Colton Miller, first round pick. We have Charles Grant behind him, a third round pick. We have Jackson Powers Johnson, a second round pick. We have Caleb Rogers, a second round pick. We have Colton Miller, who's a UDFA, who's played a lot of time and was graded very highly 2 years ago when he was the right guard. Also played a little bit of left, has also played center. Then we have DJ Glaze, who is also a third round pick, right? And then Dalton Wagner, on the roster right now as that backup right tackle, who was also a UDFA. So the Raiders have some pretty high picks. They also have Spencer Burford, which I don't know exactly where he was picked. But my point is, right? They move the offensive line. They bring in Rick Dennison. They run the football, right? They make Kenneth Walker III look like a first round pick. They do the same with Charbonnet, right? Until he got injured. They also had another running back. I can't think of the name right now, but they also had him as well that ran the football. So they had three guys that ran the football. They also used a fullback and ran a lot of, 22 personnel, 12 personnel. And I believe the Raiders are going to do the same thing, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They have the same system. So if you're looking at this offensive line and say it's Colton Miller, right? And who knows what the left pick is, left side is going to be. Do they move JPJ back to the left? Do they keep him on the right? Does he get beat out for the left by Spencer Burford? Right? Do they get beat out, both of them by another third round pick in Trey Zune that I didn't talk about, right? So the Patriots offensive line also had a first round pick at left tackle or right tackle. And then the rest of that offensive line, I do believe were fifth round picks. So, you know, these guys, if you have the right offensive line coach, which I believe we do with Rick Dennison, he has a proven track record so far, right? Of turning these teams around, of putting the right guys in the right places. So there's going to be a competition at the guard positions between JPJ and Caleb Rogers and Antonio Mafi and Trey Zune, right? All these guys are going to battle, and I believe this offensive line can turn it around just like the Seattle Seahawks. They had one of the worst offensive line. I do believe it was ranked 28th in the NFL in 2024. In 2025, they're one of the best offensive lines in football and the best rushing team in football, and they win the Super Bowl. So turnarounds can come. They can come really, really quick, right? I just keep saying that. So yeah, offensive line, man. If you're looking at, our offensive line, like I said, we know two are pretty much penciled in Colton Miller and Tyler Linderbaum, who I didn't even just mention a minute ago. Right. We also have where was Tyler Linderbaum drafted? What round was Tyler Linderbaum drafted? First round pick 25. Okay, so So that even looks better. So what I'm saying is the Seattle Seahawks, they had two first round picks on their offensive line. They had a center playing first round, a center that was a fifth round pick. We have a first round center, a first round left tackle, a second round pick in JPJ, and a third round pick in Trey Zune, Caleb Rogers, and then a couple UDFAs in Meredith and Mafi, which I wouldn't be surprised if Meredith, I don't know. I don't know. Do y'all let me know. Do y'all think, let me ask you this question. Do y'all think Jordan Meredith is athletic enough to play the guard spot in a Clint Kubiak's wide zone system? Right? That guard is going to be pulling a lot. That guard is going to have to get to the next level a lot. He had an 80% run grade 2 years ago when Antonio Pierce was the head coach. Do you think Tyrone Johnson will hold out? I don't think he'll have to hold out. I believe the Raiders will just cut him. I really do. I don't think this organization is messing around. And if you're going to act like you don't want to be here and he doesn't show up to camp at mandatory day one, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone. To tell you the truth, D Money, we've seen so far that they're not messing around. If they don't like you, they're getting rid of you. Also, in the news, I forgot to talk about the Raiders released the bloodline Brendan Rice, son of former wide receiver Jerry Rice. No longer with the team. I had high expectations for this young man. I really thought that he'd give it his all. Just having the opportunity to play on a team your father played for in a Super Bowl on. I just thought that would, be extra motivation, but apparently not enough motivation. They have moved on. They went and got a linebacker that's 6'1", around 250. Um, Pretty good time, pretty good, 40 time, pretty quick, moves around, could tackle. Cameron McGrone. So, welcome to the Raiders, Cameron McGrone. Just more competition. And with that, I want to ask you this. Next topic. Are the Raiders comfortable with Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker's health going into the season? Neither one of them have been able to stay on the grass through an entire season the last couple of years. They both have injury problems. So, are you, as a nation, comfortable with Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean being those two guys? And then are you comfortable with the depth behind them, bringing in the man we just brought in and Cameron McGrone? We also have Segun Alobi. We also have, of course, Tommy freaking Eichenberg. And then I can't remember the last one. Tommy Eichenberg and Cody Lindenberg. And I do believe that wraps. Oh, and then the UDFAs, right? And Sorry and the Chris Brown, I want to say. I always forget his name. Anyways, yeah, that's what we got. So yeah, I don't know if he holds out. I don't really think he means that much to the Raiders season, right? I feel like they went and got two guys that could play safety. We got a couple corners, and I believe that probably both of those corners, if you had to, put them at the safety position at the slot, that they would be fine. Hakeem Massis is definitely, that outside guy, but I feel like he has good enough hip movement that he can play in the slot if he had to, or, move one of those guys over, put him on the outside and put somebody else in the slot. So, and then we don't really know where, Teron Johnson was going to play. Was he going to be that slot guy? Was he going to be that nickel guy? Was he going to be, the safety guy? We really don't know. So I don't really see it's a big thing. I think it's, I believe he has only 1.6 million guaranteed money this year. Probably trying to get more guaranteed money, but like I said, I could see the Raiders just moving on from him and not even bothering if it was me. But what do I know? What do I know? Just a Raider fan. Also in the news, 2 days away, man. 2 days away. Tomorrow we will find out if we are one of those teams that have to play far, far away, whether it be Mexico with the 49ers, which I think that information is kind of already leaked that the 49ers are playing somebody else in Mexico, but it's just a leak. I don't know if it's guaranteed. So tomorrow we will know for sure what international games will be played. And then Thursday, 5 o'clock, my time, your time, somebody's time, the schedule will be out. And why is the schedule so important? Because the Las Vegas Raiders find out. The Las Vegas Raider fans find out. Raider Nation finds out when Fernando Mendoza gets to play, or if he gets to play at all this season for the Las Vegas Raiders, right? It's a big, big day because a lot of people are looking at that schedule going, man, if our bye week is, week 5, is that a little early to put him out there, right? If our bye week is week 10, do you put him in at week 10 and roll the rest of the season? Or at week 10, right? If you're sitting at 5-5 or you're sitting at 6-4, do you really risk messing up the mojo, right? I won't even give the other consequence, right? If we're sitting at 2 and you know what I mean, 2-8 going into week 10. I don't think it'll go that far. I know it won't go that far. Somebody else will be quarterback. I guarantee you on this team. So we don't have to worry about that, right? We don't have to worry about one quarterback being, dropped into the quarterback position and then us being stuck with them no matter what happens and just having to soak in our misery and watch somebody give the ball to the other team constantly, right? That won't be a thing this year. Obviously, we have 3 quarterbacks in the building. We may only have 2 and, a practice squad guy. Let me know what y'all think about that. Why is nobody commenting? Somebody. Nobody gonna let me know what you think about nothing? All right, on to the next segment then. I'm not asking that question. I don't even know why that's on here. Um, all right, so this is the next topic, right? Our very own, your very own, somebody's very own. You think Palomao, Big Pal, didn't really play well because of coaching. I think Isaiah Palomao was asked to play out of position, right? I feel like he's that strong safety guy that plays better in the box. Don't we all play better in the box, right? I think he's that guy that is better, blitzing the quarterback, getting downhill in coverage. I just don't think he has fluid enough hips. I don't think he's great at tracking the ball in the air. And I don't know, like I said, I just think he was out of position. As being asked to play the free safety spot was not his spot. They should have went out and got another free safety or kept Marcus Epps, in my opinion. I don't know how he's still floating around. Maybe that injury he had with us was just enough to be done for his career. I don't know, but they really needed a free safety. We've needed one for a long time, and I just don't see, unless they put him at that backup, to back up Jeremy Chin. I really don't know how long he stays on this roster, right? Is it going to be June 1st cuts? Is it going to be, him moving behind Jeremy Chin and playing that, backup strong safety type role? It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but he's one of those guys that's definitely on a bubble. I believe he's definitely on the edge, right? It was a lot of people thought that they kept him last year because he was a Pete Carroll guy at a USC, right? And they were like, he's a USC guy. Let's keep him in the building. But let's put him at free safety when he doesn't really have the speed to be that single high safety and cover sideline to sideline, boundary to boundary, right? Just doesn't have the speed. So Isaiah Palomao is definitely questionable. It just depends on where this coaching staff sees him, right? We know that he's had time with Rob Leonard for what, the last 2-3 years, but that was as at defensive line coach. So we don't really know how he feels about that. And we also don't know who's taking that job, right? If you're telling me Eric Traden Stukes is going to play that, be battling for that free safety position, then yeah, Palomao's time is definitely ticking for me. Raiders gave him a contract too. I mean, They do that all the time though, right? They give guys contract just to bring them in the building, but they make it where they're not have to take a huge cap hit. I think his cap hit is high, so like I said, I don't think he's going to be off the team. I think he's a guy that you can use on special teams. Definitely, you can use if he's willing to take that route, but we don't know how guys are going to take that, right? And we have heard Kubiak say, right? We brought in these young guys, the safeties and the corners, to push the veterans, to push the starters that were in front of them, the role players, the backup guys that were in front of them. So that's definitely right. That's definitely the agenda, is to make sure that everybody's being pushed. And if that's the case, some guys can get pushed out. And I think Palomal is just one of those guys. The Raiders did give him a contract, and I believe the cap hit would be about the same, right? I think the cap hit, let's see. Spoke Jack. Um, Come on, man. What's taking so long? All right, so season summary, cap hit, Isaiah should be right. Bam. Yeah, so Isaiah's cap hit is 4 point. Where'd he go? Stop moving. I hate when this damn thing does this. I was way past it. 4.8, almost 4.9 mil for Isaiah Palamal. So like I said, I really don't see it being this year that he's in jeopardy, unless somebody really really shows out. We also Devin Lafayette, I believe, is a guy who's going to make a push and has a really good chance to make this team just because of his football awareness, his tackling ability. The man's a missile coming downhill, and the Raiders lack guys like that, right? Guys that can make tackles. But Isaiah Palamal is a good tackler as well, most of the time, right? Not all the time, but so almost a $5 million cap hit. You know, somebody's really gonna have to beat him out. I think to the rate for the Raiders to eat that, especially with the way the contract is. Let me see what his contract is. Team Raiders. Um, let's go overview. That's not it. All right, so that's not it either. What the hell? Cash contracts. Finally. All right, where we at? Where we at? So Isaiah Palamal is 2 years, $7.45 million, averages 3.725 per season through I just lost it. Through 2026. So this is the last year of his contract. I would not be surprised if one of these guys are playing better than Isaiah Palamal, that they just move on. It depends. It really depends. Kind of depends on if Tyron Johnson is gonna is he gonna play? Um, is he gonna be just a roster spot casualty like guys like Brandon Rice were, right? Because Brandon Rice was released. They also released Charles Snowden to bring in um, more offensive tackles, I do believe. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys on this list that I mean, bro, Trading Stukes is making 4 years, $12 million. To me, that says Isaiah Palomau is in a lot of jeopardy, right? A lot of jeopardy. And then you have, already guys on the roster and Darian Porter. You have Greedy Vance that can, move up and take that spot. You have um, guys like Tanner Wall. You have guys like that we just talked about, Devin Lafayette. So, yeah, man, there's a lot of these guys that are, young that could be cheaper if they're just going to be a backup role. You know, if they're pretty close, right? So we'll see, man. We'll see. I hope Isaiah Palomau makes it, right? He one of those good stories, right? Fought his way as a UDFA to come in and be a starter for this team for the last 2 years, off and on. So I'm praying for him, man. I'm praying for him. I hope he makes it. But if they put him, like I said, at the backup of a strong safety position, I don't see why he wouldn't make it. All right, so let's go back to the topic I was going to talk about, and that is there is an article by Ezekiel Treservant, and he says breaking down position groups, but he didn't really break down the position groups, right? He didn't give it like a grade like I thought it was going to be because the title says, what does the title say? Oh, every ranking Raiders position group by overall talent and depth. So it didn't really have numbers, but he started with the defensive line. Do you believe this defensive line is the best position group we have? Because I talked about it. I believe the defensive line, if you're counting just defensive line, right? That's probably going to be those, 3, 4 guys with their hand in the dirt, probably 2 outside linebackers. So where does Crosby fit in that category? Is he offensive lineman? Is he outside linebacker? Depends on where they fit in, but he says it's the deepest group. Um, yeah, with likes of Maxx Crosby and Twitty Pay. We talked about this the other day. Where does Twitty Pay, fit in? Arnie Garza, what's good, my brother? But he says our number one defensive group is our defensive line, and right now I question that. I feel like it's our offensive line. I think our offensive line is going to be a lot better with the coaching they get, and our defensive line is as well. But I feel like our offensive line has a lot more depth, right? We have a lot of questions with guys like Malcolm Kuntz and Twitty Pay and Charles Snow, or not Charles Snowden, Kieron Crawford, right? There's questions with those 4. Those are edge rushers, but then we don't know what we're getting, or if Adam Butler is even going to be on this roster come the end of the year. His cap hit is, the same as his salary, around 4 or 5 mil. So lots of questions, but let me know. Is the defensive line, do you think the deepest group on this roster? More than likely, they'll keep 9 if they count the outside linebackers. Just depends on how they count the position groups, how they word it. But more than likely, they're going to be defensive line will be the edge rushers and Crosby and Twitty. He says tight end, right? Tight end. They have one of the best tight end leagues, regardless if healthy, right? Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Ian Thomas. Will it be um, Will it be Carter Runyon? Carter Runyon is a guy that I feel like did enough to get a chance to show that he could be that third tight end if they only keep 3, right? So that battle is going to be a fun one to watch for me, Ian Thomas and Carter Runyon. And then they also brought in another tight end, I think. So they also have, I think, a UDFA that's battling for that spot, and I do not know his name. The third best group is the running backs, right? And you could make a question for running backs and the quarterback room probably being the best group, right? I mean, quarterback room is pretty talented if you look at it. When you have number 1 pick overall Fernando Mendoza, and then you have Kirk Cousins, and then you also have Aiden O'Connell, that's a pretty solid group that you could feel pretty comfortable that if something happens to one of them, right, or two of them that you're good, and you don't have to go out and waste money on a fifth round pick like a guy like Kenny Pickett, right? See, a la Kenny Pickett. But the running back group, Ashton Jeanty, of course, Nutty Raider Nate, what's good, my guy? Appreciate you popping in. So, do y'all feel like the running back group is, you know, the third best position group that we have on this roster? I don't know. I question that. And then linebackers, right? Linebackers. I question this as well. The fourth best group. Now I know they have two of the best stars in Quiddy Pay and Quay Walker. I can't speak today. What's going on? And Quay Walker and N'Kobe Dean. But then behind that, you have Tommy Eichenberg, who hasn't really shown enough to say who he is or what he is. And then behind that, you have Cody Lindenberg that hasn't really proved what he is. And then you have Xavier Sori and the Chris Brown, the other guy battling, um, also battling. So linebacker group, it's if something happens to the two guys that haven't been able to show they can make it through a full entire season in Quay Walker and N'Kobe Dean, then you have questions of Cody Lindenberg or Tommy Eichenberg having to come in and play a major role in a 4-3 defense or a 3-4 defense, right? Or even even a 4-2-5. You don't want your second guy to be a guy that hasn't having enough grass time to prove himself. Now maybe this camp for Tommy Eichenberg, this will be his third off season, right? Maybe he can put it together, figure it out. We've seen a lot of film, if you follow Cody Lindenberg on X, of him out there every single day doing something new, grinding. He looks faster, he looks stronger. Cody Lindenberg looks like he's on a mission. But in coverage, right? In coverage wise, because if our defense is going to be like the Ravens, your linebackers are going to be in coverage a lot. If it's going to be, kind of similar to Seattle, your linebackers are going to be in coverage, right? If it's going to be similar to what Spagnola does over there, right? Your linebackers are going to be in coverage. So I'm not comfortable with Cody Lindenberg or Tommy Eichenberg being in coverage. I'm solid with them at the mic position. I might have to turn mine off. And then the next major group, I'm going to have to talk a little bit louder. The offensive line. So the offensive line is the fifth best position group, according to Ezekiel Trezevant. And then after that is the quarterback group. That is the sixth best position group rated on our roster. We talked about who those are. And then seventh is wide receivers. And then the defensive backs, which I feel like this defensive back group is highly, 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 highly underrated. And we're going to find out in OTAs, whether it's Aiden O'Connell, whether it's the savior Fernando Mendoza, right? Whether it's Kirk Cousins, we are all going to find out that this defense is going to be making plays in the offseason, right? OTAs coming up on the 18th. Be ready to, well, probably not hear it because we don't have really a lot of reporters that'll come out and report all the turnovers. We get a couple here and there. Some do, some days, some do not days, right? I know people that were at practices that were saying there were more turnovers going on that were reported by some of the reporters. So we have different guys in the building reporting as well this year, right? Go check out some of them, and maybe we'll get a different side. Tommy freaking Eichenberg, a special teams demon. I agree with that 100%. But are you just making the team and taking up a linebacker position for mainly special teams when we're gonna, like I said, be in a 3-4? You're gonna have four linebackers. Now, granted, two of those linebackers are more likely gonna be a Malcolm Kuntz, a Twitty Pay, right, or a Crawford and a Crosby. More than likely, that's my opinion. I don't see us having literally four linebackers out there all the time. You also have, well, depending on the defense, but you also have guys like, Jeremy Chin. Where is he going to play? Is he going to play kind of like that jack linebacker role? Is he going to be that, that nickel guy? Lots of questions. Get in your questions. Arnie Garza has one. Question: Who is your breakout player this year on offense and defense on the um on the coaching staff? My breakout player this year, for some reason, I want to say it's a rookie on the offense. But since we don't really have any rookies that are going to be, that primarily number one starter, I think it's Jack Besh. I really think it's Jack Besh. I went back and watched all of his 29 targets last night and was trying to put some film together. Not quite done with it. But man, we're telling y'all are sleeping on Jack Besh. This man, he might not be the fastest. He might not, create separation like people want or say. But what he does is even if the guy's on him, he knows angles, he knows how to use his leverage. He's bigger than them. He has a wider catch radius, and he's way more stronger and physical than any defensive back that's going to try to guard him. Now, the linebackers is a question, but he's faster than most of them too. Jack Besh is a big man, and if you look at pictures that have been coming out the last couple of days, he's even a bigger man, and he looks like a tight end playing a slot receiver or an X position, in an X position body. So look out for Jack Besh, man. Look out. Go back if you can. Watch the all 22 film. All you got to do is type in Jack Besh, all plays, right? All plays, Jack Besh, offense, receiving, or, just on the field. And I'm telling you, man, the man can block. He gets open. There was almost every play that he caught the ball out of the 29 targets that he had, the 20 catches that he had, all of them but like five, he was open, like wide open. Like I'm over here open, that type of open. So man, he's gonna be special. When he plants his foot in the ground, right? He knows how to get underneath the defender and use that leg to step off and slow them down, get tangled up in their feet, and just that's all he needs. That's all he needs. He don't need to create 3 yards of separation on every single play or 2 yards of separation, right? As long as you're a step or a half a step behind him, he's going to catch the ball out in front of him with his body, right? And he's got, like I said, longer, bigger arms. He's stronger. He's going to win those, 50-50 balls 90% of the time. I say 70%, but I'm really starting to feel like he's going to be better. So Jack Besh on defense, I really hope it's one of these rookies. I hope it's Traden Stukes. I'm praying Jermod McCoy gets on the grass and takes that spot, whether it's Eric Stokes' spot, whether it's my guy Darian Porter, whether they put him at the slot, right? Maybe they move him to the nickel strong safety position. Who knows? But I think one of those defensive backs. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens and the season doesn't go their way, health wise, that a guy like Hakeem Masses comes in and just surprises the world, right? and is ready to go because he's going to be one of those, guys that's on the back totem pole. So he's, not going to get as many reps, and he's going to probably, be learning most of the season. So when he gets his chance, I believe he'd be ready. So I would like to say one of those guys, but I really feel like I don't know on defense, man. It's hard to say. Jeremy Chin could have a big year. Crosby could have a big year. I hope it's a guy like Thomas Booker. You know, if Thomas Booker even ends up making the squad, depending on which direction they go. But I'm gonna have to say Jonah Lalu. I'm gonna have to say Jonah Lalu. You know, had a solid year the start of the season, 4 sacks in the first couple games, right? He was getting to the quarterback, he was getting pressures, and I think those pressures are going to turn into sacks and tackle for loss. So I think I feel like this defense is going to rely on a guy like Jonah Laulu and more than likely Tonka Hemingway. With 2 drafts by Spytech, who is the best draft pick? Who is the worst? In the 2 drafts, for okay. Um, I mean, bro, Ashton Jeanty, I'm gonna have to say, so far, is the most proven, right? We just talked about, the elite skills that he has, the elite numbers that he put up as a rookie behind the worst offensive line in football. So that's hard, man. That's hard. You always have the hardest questions, Arnie Garza. If I'm gonna have to say one, Mendoza's not proven. I don't even know if he gets on the grass this year. So I'm gonna take Mendoza out of the equation for these draft picks. And who is the best draft pick? I'm That's rough, bro. That's rough because it's Jamon McCoy if he plays, right? If he's able to play, which I really have high hopes from, the doctors that things that I've read from the doctors that other content creators have you had on, like, Hondo Carpenter and the guy that he had on, the surgeon he had on. I'm really starting to lean. And then, a guy that I follow on X that is a doctor and does this, that, I lean on for questions, also really believes he has a damn good shot at playing. So if that's the case, if Jamon McCoy plays, he's got to be the defensive, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's defensive, player of the year if he plays in this Robbie Leonard system. Man, if you just let him play press on one side, that changes his whole entire defense if Jamon McCoy plays. So I'm gonna go with Jamon McCoy, and then on the coaching staff, I believe it's Andrew Janoko. Andrew Janoko is a guy that Clint Kubiak praises highly. He said, all of his success, that he wouldn't know what to do if he didn't have a guy like Andrew Janoko in his corner, in his hip pocket, a guy that to bounce things off of, and a guy kind of like Spytek is with Brady, right? A guy that is not going to take his, just tell him, oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, right? Not one of those guys that, that's going to be a brown noser, so to say. So I believe they have that relationship, and I think Andrew Janoko is going to be huge for Fernando Mendoza. He's going to be huge for Ashton Jeanty in this offense, because a lot of people are, I know Clint Kubiak has his system, right, but he's going to run plays and create plays for the players that we have specifically, like Brock Bowers, like Ashton Jeanty. And I think Andrew Janoko, now being the offensive coordinator, is going to have a lot more say in, hey, I got some plays too. Let me get some of these plays out here, because eventually I'm going to want to take the next step and, possibly be a head coach. And if this team goes good, right, that's a lot more, opportunity for Andrew Janoko. So I feel like Andrew Janoko is, hopefully he stays around for a long, long time. I'm not trying to say, we're gonna have no great season and everybody's gonna steal him, but you never know in the NFL. So I feel like Andrew Janoko is a key piece, right? Can he be that guy that can help take the pressure off of Clint Kubiak, having to call the plays, having to come up with all the plays, right? Having to, know what teams we're facing and what's, best options. So Clint Kubiak said it himself, man. Andrew Janoko is a huge part of his success, and he said doesn't know what he would do without him. So he's very blessed, like he said, to be able to bring him over there with him, and I think that's going to be a key part. And then to add to that, it's Rick Dennison, because he said the same thing about Rick Dennison, right? He's awful grateful and blessed to be able to keep Rick Dennison around. And, when you have three guys that have been in a couple organizations together and know each other that much, and now they're just coming and putting that same process to the Las Vegas Raiders, it's so much different than last year, right? Last year, a lot of us were pumped, right? We have a guy that has, 580 years football experience because he's, 600 years old and has probably forgot more football than we'll ever know. But this is a totally different scenario, right? Clint, Pete Carroll was a guy that was stuck in his ways, right? He had done it before. He had made it to a Super Bowl twice, won one, lost one. A guy that was branded in his ways, his thoughts, his people, the guys he needed to fit his system. Kubiak is kind of the same, but he's also young. He's innovative, and now you add Andrew Janoko to that, and Rick Dennison, and that trio, I think, is going to be the difference for the Raiders this season, 100%. Tommy freaking Eichenberg, which position group is one injury away from disaster? Oh, Arnie Garza. Man, why you do that to me, Arnie Garza? Uh, NFL Open is closer than what? NFL Open is closer than a full step. I hope, yeah, I hope. Man, Arnie Garza. Let's see. I gotta think. We have pretty good depth at offensive line. We're solid at quarterback. We're straight at running back. Depending on which guys make the practice squad for the wide receiver group, that's right all year long. You're gonna be like every time they get hit. So I could add the wide receiver group to that. Then defensive line, I feel like is pretty stout. I feel like we have enough guys. Also, depending on who's going to be on the practice squad. Which if it's guys like Trevin Maye, which Jafari Harvey, I feel real comfortable with those guys if they have to be called up, to do their job. Um, the linebacker group, I guess the linebacker group. If I had to pick one, the linebacker group. If Quay Walker, is to get injured for any significant amount of time, or Nakobe Dean, or even a Cody Eichenberg or Tommy Lindenberg, right? Then you're looking at, whoever makes this roster behind them, whether it's my guy Xavier Sori, my Arkansas boy. He's another guy that I feel could come in and play that defensive end role and that linebacker role, any position in the linebacker role. So linebacker is very, very scary to me right now. Safety room, I mean, I feel like I'm comfortable with the corners right now. If the guys that I feel are going to make the squad, and those guys being, Eric Stokes, Darian Porter, McCoy, Hezekiah Masses, probably Greedy Vance, which he's on the bubble as well, right? If those players like that make it, I feel a lot more comfortable with. Did Todd Marinovich play on grass in Oakland? I don't know. Was it grass? It was a lot of dirt. He played on a lot of dirt. It's your birthday? Shout out to my guy. Happy birthday. If y'all would wish my guy Brad in the building, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, man. How old are you? How old are you? Oh, shit. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I forgot to do something. My bad, my bad. I had to tip real quick. I forgot. Oh shit. Answer this. You sure do. All right. So, what was I talking about? Yeah. Happy birthday, my brother. I'm rude. Rude. Just get up on your birthday, tip like that. But how old? You don't have to tell us how old you are. For real. For real. We talking about Beck ability to get open. He doesn't have to get wide open. Yeah, he doesn't have to get wide open. He's got that good, he's got good arms. Um he's got good catch radius, right? He's pretty athletic. He's got, pretty decent jump. So yeah, I don't think Besh he doesn't have to get wide open. And if you go back and watch his all 22, like I said, a lot of those catches he was wide open, but a lot of those catches were, there was two guys on him. A couple of those there was, guys on his hip pocket where he's carrying guys and still making the catch. Yeah, I believe Best is going to be a sleeper. So, speaking of that, man, let's get into it. So we have a new segment, and it is called "Hit It or Quit It." Right? Hit it or quit it. So this segment, I'm going to ask some questions. Let's go back to that. Don't need to keep that up there too long. I don't know what I just did to my damn screener. My greenish screener. Well, speaking of the greens, right? Like I said, Sometimes, that good. You want to just hit it. Sometimes, you want to just quit it. So I'm gonna pop up these questions, and y'all let me know. Do you feel like the first question will be? I probably should have did it on the other screen. That's all right. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go back on this one. See what that looks like. Wait, can y'all see the little play thing on there? Because that's annoying. I have no idea what y'all can see. Anyways, I'm gonna roll with this for a minute. And the question number one. Tonka Hemingway will have 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss this season. Last season, he had, I believe, 4, but he had those very quickly in the season. And then the team just fell apart on defense, right? We had scenarios where let's probably make that bigger. That's what she said. That's what she said. All right, this ain't working. Anyways, so yes or no, hit it or quit it. Tonka Hemingway will have 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. And like I said, last year he had, I believe, 4.5. He had a couple tackles for loss. He had some decent pressures. So let me know. This defensive line, going to a 3-4, more than likely he'll be out there. I want to say, more on passing downs than rushing downs, because if you look at this defensive line, we have a lot of guys that are run stoppers, right? Twitty Pay, more known for, run stopping. Guys like Thomas Booker, more known for run stopping, right? JJ Pegues, kind of, I guess, known for really run stopping and pressure, but we just didn't see much of him last year. So hopefully he takes this new step, the next step also this year. But yeah, a lot of our defensive line, like Adam Butler, more of a run stopper, but he's a guy that can get to the passer. Jonah Laulu, more of a, I think more of a pass rush guy than a run stopper, but he also does both as well. So you think Tonka Hemingway will have 7 sacks? He had 4 in 5 games last year. Didn't play a whole lot of snaps. I was gonna look at that. I don't know what his exact snap count was, but he didn't get a whole lot of burn, right? So 4 sacks in 5 games, that's saying a lot. And again, when you question where Quiddy Pay is going to play, right? When you're questioning guys like the 3rd-round pick in Crawford, right? Where's Keyron Crawford going to play? Is he going to play a lot? Is he going to play behind Maxx? Is it going to be Malcolm Kuntz behind Maxx this time? And some of those guys, over on the right side, are some of these guys like Kane Sloan going to make this roster? Are they going to play on that side? There's a lot of questions we have going into the season that we have to answer, and it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute. I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna pass to y'all. So I say yes. I say Tonka Hemingway has 7 sacks this season and 10 tackles for a loss. I believe he's a man that, again, you could play on the edge. You could play at a 4 tech. I think, I'm pretty sure you could put him at the 2 if you had to. Not the heaviest, but good get off, right? Good hands, decent moves. And as you can see from last year, the little bit that he was on the grass, he showed an awful lot. So I'm gonna say yes, man. I'm gonna say definitely yes. Let me know y'all's opinion. The participation is lovely. Shout out for the $2 holler. Raiders. All right. So we'll just jump to the next one. This will be faster than I thought. Nice. The next one is Jack Besh Jack Best will have this season 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Last year, again, he had 29 targets, caught 20 of those for 200 and I want to say 56 yards, 47 yards, somewhere around 250, right? I don't know the exact numbers. I don't want to take the time to look it up because a couple yards really doesn't matter. Anyways, the point is he averaged, somewhere I don't know, somewhere around 11 yards a catch or something like that. So pretty decent season, but he had an offensive line that was ranked 32nd in the NFL. He also had a guy like Geno Smith throwing on the ball, Kenny Pickett for 2 games in a play, So let me know your thoughts on Jack Best. Will Jack Best have 700 yards and 5 touchdowns in a Clint Kubiak offense? I'm going to say yes. I believe that Brock Bowers' numbers aren't going to be what they were his rookie year. I'd be surprised, if he does get to that 1,000-yard mark. I know he's going to get a lot of targets, right? But he's also going to get a lot of double teams. He's also going to have the number one corner. If we don't go out and get another number one corner, or if we don't show in preseason that we have a guy that can stretch the field, whether it's Dante Thornton, Cedric Jackson, who is on his last leg and is also on the bubble as well. Guys like EJ Williams, guys like, Malik Benson. Can these guys be the guys to go out there and stretch the edge, stretch the field, and take some of the pressure off of Brock Bowers so he gets those one-on-ones where he can win? Until we have that, Brock Bowers is the focal point, and teams are going to focus on Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers. Unless, my guy Mike Washington's in the game, then that's going to be the focal point as well. So what I'm saying is, let me know. 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, but I feel like in this offense, the 9 targets that he dropped, I want to say 4 of them, maybe it was 5, were, iffy, iffy whether it was on him or not. One was definitely on him, hit him right in the hands, but the defender came over the back, and obviously when you catch the ball right close to your body, it gives the defender, a better chance of getting over the shoulder and making the play instead of, reaching out and attacking the ball and catching out in front of you. So Jack Best, I'm going to say yes. I believe he could have 700 yards. He had 200 yards on 20 catches. I feel like I know there was a lot of times where if the quarterback would have just hit him the ball on the run, right, led the receiver, let him eat up some grass after the catch, the yardage would have been sky high, bro. He probably would have had closer to 450, in my opinion. A lot of those plays that, he runs his route and then he's coming back to the quarterback because the quarterback is just taking way too long to throw the dang football. And, the guy's moving, he's running across the field, he's running back across the field, still making the catches. All the talk about he can't create separation. You can't tell me that you can't create separation when you're getting away from guys on broken plays and your quarterback is scrambling and you're the guy he's throwing the ball to. So to me, I say yes, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. For Jack Best, I think he takes a lot of these targets away from Dante Thornton until he proves he can be that guy. I know we have Jalen Naylor in the building. How many targets is he going to get? I believe he's going to have to prove himself. If Kirk Cousins is the quarterback, I believe the Jalen Naylor and Kirk Cousins connection, that might kind of persuade the targets for Jack Best as well. And the offensive line, right? How long is the offensive line going to be having to block? How long are they going to have to hold up? Is it going to be, 2.5 seconds? Is it going to be 3 seconds? Are they going to have to, try to block for 5, 6, 7 seconds like they do with Caleb Williams and like you have to do with Geno Smith last year? So yeah, let me know. And then I'll go back to this one. That was annoying. All right. And then the final one. And thanks for all the participation. Appreciate y'all. Y'all the greatest chat on the planet. If he gets 7 sacks, we didn't need to draft a DT. What do you think? I never thought we needed a defensive tackle. I was not on that train. Like, they can go back and watch all my videos. My biggest need was safety and wide receiver. I wanted Denzel Boston in a second. They skipped over him, which told me that they felt like trading Stooks was a bigger need than Denzel Boston. So I was fine with that. But defensive tackle was never a high priority for me. I always felt like JJ Pegues, Tonka Hemingway didn't get enough looks last year. I felt like Jonah Laulu was held back a lot last year. Um, Same thing with Thomas Booker, right? I thought Thomas Booker was held back and asked to do a lot of things, play different positions, chase guys, sideline to sideline instead of trying to get to the quarterback. So I believe in this defensive line, and yeah. So I never really thought we needed a DT, but if he gets 7 sacks, then yeah, we definitely didn't need a defensive tackle. Not high on the draft, anyways. You're not high on the draft, man. You're gonna have to come on the channel one of these days. We're gonna have to talk about it. There's a lot of people not high on the draft. Maybe it's just me. Maybe in my old age, I'm just getting where I'm accept things a lot more. I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, that's wow. I, I don't know. No, I don't know. All right, we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so then last on the list, man. Actually, I gotta get rid of your comment before I do this. It's not gonna show up right. All right, so last on the list is hit it or quit it. Maxx Crosby will have 17 sacks and lead the NFL in tackles for loss this season. Now, the last topic I was going to talk about is Maxx Crosby, right? Does Maxx Crosby, as it says in the title, does Maxx Crosby have the pieces around him to finally go compete for a defensive player of the year, right? Only one vote 2 years ago, was not in the conversation last year, right? Nowhere near, didn't even get to smell it. So he was not in those talks last year. Will Maxx Crosby be in those talks this year? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Maxx Crosby is in the defensive player of the year talks? And the reason I say that is he now has players around him, right? He has guys that can take away the double team, right? Especially if you have a guy like Lackey Tassie that comes in at nose guard, or if you have guys like JJ Pegues that I know could get to the damn quarterback. He did it at Old Miss on a regular. So, I know he can get to the quarterback. I know he can stop the run. I know he can, be that anchor if you need him to anchor and stack and peak and stack and, you know, all of that, bro. All of that. So um I feel like we have, a lot of guys that are being slept on. Again, Pegues, Tonka Hemingway, Laulu, right? A lot of these guys are hungry. They want to show what they have. And then you still have the UDFAs like Jafari Harvey, that with his size and his physicality and his violent hands, that dude could easily be, one of these third guys with his hand in the dirt. Um, Next to a guy like Thomas Booker, right? Because I think Thomas Booker is that he has that reminds me of that Lyle Alzado build, right? Remember Lyle Alzado pictures back in the day of Lyle Alzado just ripped. I got one on my phone somewhere. Um, but those are the kind of defensive linemen we need, right? Not these bigger guys out of shape, not athletic. I think Thomas Booker is kind of like the prototype defensive end, our defensive lineman that I look for, right? Those guys that are strong, huge arms, huge bodies, huge legs, huge backside, right? They can anchor, they can push, they can stack and shed, right? They can stack and peak, they can do all those things. And I feel like Thomas Booker, in his second year with the Raiders is going to be a lot better if he makes the squad because, again, we don't know who's safe. We don't know who's safe. I was saying we didn't need to draft a defensive tackle high in the draft. Nice. Um, you think we might have a competition? I think we're gonna have a I know we're gonna have a competition at every position, pretty much on this roster. Quarterback is the most questionable, right? How much of a competition is it going to be? Is it going to be kind of like we had last year? And things that I don't want to happen this year is what happened the last couple years. You bring in a new GM, he puts in his quarterback. You bring in a new coach, he trades for his quarterback and makes sure he's the guy, right? And now you have Kubiak in the building who brings in his quarterback. I get it, knowing the system a little bit and all that, knowing some of the language, knowing how your knowing how your head coach operates as an offensive coordinator. I get all that, but I just hope Kubiak's not one of those guys that's like, let's just play Kirk Cousins, let's just play Kirk Cousins, right? And just keep pushing for this man. If he's not the best guy on the field, Kirk Cousins said it himself. If I'm not the best guy, I don't want to play. So hopefully we can all pray that that is the scenario. But yeah, I'm looking at Maxx Crosby, man, and over the past, you had guys like Chandler Jones, uh, who just it didn't turn out to be what it should have been, right? And then you had guys like Yan, Yannick Ngakwe, right? Or Yannick. You had guys, that didn't stay for long in Yannick, right? You've also had while I'm trying, I should have wrote down these names while I'm trying to think them all at the top of my head. But you also had the guy that came over from the Chicago Bears. What the hell is his name? Anyways, right? None of our defensive line come and stay very long. Then you bring in Christian Wilkinson, and you think he's going to be the guy. You pay him a huge amount of money, right? Sign him to a big contract. Doesn't play but 2 games, and then the next year he's not even on the team, right? So we've had these scenarios over and over and over again, and I feel like Crosby now actually has guys that could make sure he's not getting double teamed, right? That's fine if you want to chip him with the back or whatever. He's used to that, and I've seen him beat both of those guys many times and make plays or make tackles for a loss. But when you're getting double teamed, by a tight end or a guard and a tackle, or getting chipped and then double teamed, right? It makes it very difficult. And we haven't had that guy that could get to, that can win those one-on-ones. And I feel like we do, whether it's Thomas Booker, whether it's Jonah Laulu, again, Tonka Hemingway, right? JJ Pegues, Adam Butler. I feel all these guys can win one-on-one. Now, are they, athletic enough and strong enough to beat double teams, to take on those double teams, to eat up gaps and take on the double teams? That's fine. If that's just their role where they're just, eating up double teams, then you got guys like Nakobe Dean. You got guys like Quay Walker, right? That could come in and make plays. Jeremy Chin that could come in and make plays. Isaiah Palamau, right? You could start blitzing a lot more if you have guys in the backfield like Eric Stokes that is going to be that lockdown corner and not give up the big plays, right? If you have a Gerard McCoy over there that's, going to be a ratchet strap over there on that side, and you don't have to worry about him, right? Just one-on-one, and then let everybody else, your linebackers and your slot play zone or however they want to do it. But I feel like the Raiders have a lot more options, and with Maxx Crosby having those guys around him, right, bringing back Malcolm Kuntz. If you look at a lot of rosters, for some reason they have Malcolm Kuntz playing behind Maxx Crosby, which I don't see that, being a good scenario, because Maxx Crosby doesn't come off the field. We're paying Malcolm Kuntz $11 million. I'm sure the Raiders would love to see him play. I know the fans would love to see what we can get out of him, right? Is he worth keeping and bringing back, signing to a longer contract, or is it time for, Malcolm to see if the grass is greener on the other side, like Tyree Wilson, right? A lot of questions. So, but when you bring in, guys like Twitty Pay, when you guys bring in guys like Sagan Alobi and guys that have been there, done that, right? You have Thomas Booker next to him, which I think that connection, right? Max was playing hurt also a lot last year, right? Got hurt early in the season. So that's another scenario where do we get a full healthy Maxx Crosby back? And if you do, you get a full healthy Maxx Crosby, next to a Thomas Booker, I think this line could be special, right? And I believe it's going to allow Maxx Crosby to go out there and, you know, get those 17 sacks or all right. So I don't know where the question went, but somehow I lost it. All right, hold up. Yeah. So do you feel Maxx Crosby can have the biggest year of his career with, you know, his teacher, his mentor, his best friend, and now his defensive coordinator, Rob Leonard, being the head coach? I believe he knows Maxx Crosby better than anybody on the planet. And the things that he's going to do with Maxx Crosby, whether it be, you know, running stunts or having him lined up all over nose tackle, right? Two tech, three tech, four tech, putting this guy where he, you know, loves to play out there at the, you know, the ghost nine position or whatever you want to call it, the reaper position is what we called it. But you know, wherever you put this man, he's gonna be a problem, right? He's gonna be a huge problem. And the things you can do with him in a 3-4 where he's playing a linebacker position, you don't know if he's blitzing, you don't know if he's dropping into coverage, you don't know if he's stunting, you don't know what Maxx Crosby is going to be doing. And that is going to create a lot of one-on-one situations. And we all know Maxx Crosby one-on-one, 99% of the time is going to win those reps, right? He's just too long. He's too bendy, freakishly fast, right? For his size. And most of the time he's going to win those reps. And so I believe the sky is the limit if this defensive backfield is what it is, right? If Eric Stokes can be that lockdown guy, if it's Darian Porter or Hakeem Massis or who knows, maybe DCAM makes it and takes that spot. I mean, we don't know with this coaching staff, right? We don't know. May the best man win. Maybe this is, you know, finally the year that DeCamarion Richardson breaks out. MJ Devonshire was our other pick, right? Wasn't that his name? MJ Devonshire, another pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. Wasn't he drafted the same year that they drafted DeCamarion Richardson? So these guys were supposed to be those, you know, those two guys that we drafted this year to lock down the backfield. Well, I believe MJ Devonshire is not even in the NFL right now, from what I know. And then you have DeCamarion Richardson, who is on the bubble on this roster as well. So a lot of hungry guys that are fighting for spots, that are fighting to, you know, to be known. But the biggest thing is Clint Kubiak said, quote, right? When the guys in this locker room realize that this is all for the team and not individual, that's when we'll be a better team and start to win games. So when you have guys preaching that message in the building, that's huge for me, man. That's huge, right? We had the rah Pete Carroll, you know, just compete, right? Compete. When nobody competed at any position, they were pretty much just, you're the guy. I don't care if the guy behind you is better than, I don't like him saying he was the starting center. We're going to move him to right guard, right? We don't have that this year. We have a guy that has a message that's preaching his message. And to me, that goes a long way. That it just feels different. So I say, I'm going to say quit it on this one. Even though I just piped up, you know, the whole entire nation with the Maxx Crosby, how great he's going to be this year. I just don't feel like he's that 17, 15, 20 type guy, right? I just don't. Too many plays where I see him, you know, just wildly rushing to the quarterback in one step and the guy, you know, he's by him, or, you know, the quarterback takes off and has a big gain to, you know, his containment side, which we don't have the linebackers to play behind him, right? So I'm not sure if Maxx Crosby is a guy that, especially, you know, the knee, whether he says it's 100% or not, I don't buy that. A guy that's torn his knee 3 different times now, ACL and MCL, ACL twice, MCL all 3 times. So yeah, it doesn't get better. You're not gonna get faster. You're not gonna get stronger. That's a myth, no matter who your doctor was. And to me, that's a question. So I don't know if he could, get 17 sacks? Would I love him to get 17 sacks this season? Absolutely. The money that, he's made over the years for, an average of 9, 10 sacks a season with one breakout year at 14. Yes, I would love Maxx Crosby to have 17 sacks. So, um, but leading the league in tackles for loss, he's always right up there. The question is, does he play a full season? If he plays a full season and he's healthy and the knee is not a problem, then I believe he leads the league in tackles for loss. And I think he has a chance to have his best season as a Raider. Now, is that 17 sacks? We'll have to wait and see. You're gonna have to prove that. But so yeah, I'm gonna quit it on that. I feel like, if he has 12, that's huge for us, right? Especially if guys like Tonka Hemingway has 7. I mean, that puts us at 19. I think we had 25 or 28 as a team last year, which I predicted us to have 46, I do believe. So it wasn't even barely half. It was not even barely half. um, yeah, yeah. So, all right, man, that's all I got. I don't know if y'all got any more questions. How y'all feeling? Uh, I could go all night. I could do this all night, but also in the news, I think I had one more thing I wanted to say. I do not know. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Where are you? Oh yeah, so that was the quote. I think I was a little off. I was going to quote it right. As soon as our players can realize it's a team thing, not an individual thing, we will be successful. Quote from the great Clint Kubiak. So, man, those go a long way. Oh, and then also, um, there was an offensive line ranking. I don't want to give out the source because I don't know, you know, how reliable, respectable, or any of that it is. But offensive line ranking, and the Raiders are a surprising 18th in the NFL. They have us ranked 18th overall this season in the NFL. Colton Miller at a 6.7 ranking. Ooh, that's rough. Jordan Meredith, they have as a starting guard at a 5.3 ranking. Tyler Linderbaum at an 8.0 ranking. Jackson Powers Johnson gets a 4.9. And DJ the Mule Glaze gets a 4.5 ranking. Yeah. So that's where they have us 18th. Ew, that's rough. Also, the power ranking. There's been 2 power rankings as of late, and both of those are highly different. But one of the power rankings I have somewhere. I gotta get more organized. What's going on here? All right, I think it's this one. Yeah, I found it. All right, so this one is Jordan Schultz power ranking for teams' strength of schedule. Now, number 1 with the strongest strength of schedule, Raider Ryan, was good, was good. Appreciate that. Number 1 with the hardest strength of schedule is the Detroit Lions. Number 2 is the New Orleans Saints, and number 3 is the Bengals. Oh, that's rough. Wait, is that the easiest? Or, oh, shit, hold up. Damn it. All right, so the Raiders are ranked 19th. 19th. And then on the other one, I seen another strength of schedule where we had the 6th easiest schedule in the NFL. Now I don't know who does these rankings, where they come up, which FRE? What? Wait, what you mean? I'm lost. So yeah, but being the worst team in the NFL, right? Being the worst team in the NFL last year with the worst record in the NFL, and we have the 19th hardest schedule in all of the NFL. Now we all know as Raider fans that that's nothing new, right? They've been doing that to Raider Nation since Al Davis was, started this Raider thing, right? Since the nation was started, they've been doing the Raiders like that for a long, long time. So it's nothing new. And I have people commenting saying, "Oh, but the schedule's done 5 years in advance." That's fine, that's fine. But just because those schedules are done, a couple years in advance, I don't think they should be a couple years in advance. I feel like there's enough technology where the NFL can wait until the season is over and see where teams were first, last, right? And then build your schedule, because there's no reason that you have to have a schedule 5 years in advance, because some of those teams like the Jets that just are not very good every single season are going to end up playing these horrible strength of schedule seasons where they don't have a single chance. So I do not like whatsoever the way they do, the way they do that. It's really kind of annoying. So 18th, 19th, 6th, wherever we are, man, it's not good. Here's the other one. This is the opponent's win percentage. All right, so our opponent's win percentage for the Raiders was 5.529, which means we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have the eighth hardest schedule according to this. This is the NFL strength of schedule rankings, right? We have the eighth. And then on the other one is Jordan Schultz, NFL strength of schedule rankings, and he explains it different. And they have the Raiders at 19. So where do you have the Raiders looking? And I know the roster don't come out for a couple days, but just looking at the teams we play, right? Where do you have this team? Um, which free agent other than Lindenbaum will have the most impact? Cousins, Naylor, Walker, Dean, Pay, Burford. I don't know if Burford even makes the squad just because he's had time with the 49ers with Clint Kubiak, right? I think he had like 58 snaps or something in his offense. Um, that's not a whole lot, right? So he knows the offense. It's not really, the greatest. So I wouldn't be surprised if Burford doesn't make this team. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know, man. Um, I don't know. I don't think Linderbaum's a lock for having, the best success, right? He struggled in pass protection. There was many times where he was pushed into Lamar Jackson's uh face over and over again, making Lamar Jackson had to roll out, break the play, push him off his spot, right? Make him throw on the run or run the ball. So Tyler Linderbaum, just for the money he made, former first round pick, 28th overall, is he's not guaranteed. It definitely depends on the success of the guys next to him, right? Is he going to have a veteran like Jordan Meredith, or is he going to have a rookie like Caleb Rogers next to him and a third year guy that really is a 1 year guy because the amount of games he's played in JPJ? Are you going to have him over there? Are you going to have Burford over there as the other guy, right? So a lot of those. Why is my phone ringing? A lot of those are questions, big questions. So I don't know. I I want to say I hope it's Cousins, right? I hope it's Cousins because if Cousins has a lot of success in free agency, that means the Raiders are winning games and we don't have to, push Fernando to play if he's not ready. Jalen Naylor also, I hope is, one of those big impact guys because we go as he goes, right? If we have a number one target besides Brock Bowers, like I talked about, that can take the pressure off of Brock so he's not double teamed all the time, and make these guys have to play one on one, or play heavy zone where the quarterback can just sit in the pocket and pick these zones apart, find the weak spot in the zone. So I don't know. That's tough to say. That's tough to say, man. Give it a little time. Let's see what we got in preseason or in camp, what we're hearing about. But if I had to pick one right off the bat, I would say Cousins. I'd say Cousins. I think he has a decent offensive line, right? Has a solid center that's going to help him out. Has two great running backs and possibly three or four. Has a fullback, um, and has a pretty decent receiving core that's fast enough to get open. If it's timing routes and if it's rhythm throws. So I'm gonna go Kirk Cousins. I'm gonna go Kirk Cousins. Now he could also be the one that struggles the most. But I'm just saying, absolutely, it's always Raider Nation against the world. Facts. Raiders. Damn talk text. That's all right. I feel you. I do the same. So I know what you're talking about, my brother. We all good. It might say some crazy shit, but but we get it. I get it. Um, don't worry. Doesn't it worry you that Tyrone Johnson is not in the building after trade from the Bills? No, I think the Raiders have made worse trades. Come on, man. I mean, we traded a third round pick for Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith. Sorry, I apologize. We traded a third round pick for Geno Smith, man. Come on, like the Raiders have made stupider things, right? We got rid of a first round pick and Tyree Wilson, seventh overall. You know, for a fifth and a seventh. We'll see how that turns out. I'm not saying it's a stupid trade, but I'm saying we made some crazy trades, bro. We traded a fifth round last year to bring in Kenny Pickett because Aiden O'Connell got hurt and they didn't trust the quarterback they drafted as a rookie, to come up and be that guy if he had to be. So Bush Raider in the building. What's good, my guy? So no, I'm not. We talked about it a little earlier, I think, before you came on, Arnie. I'm not worried about Teron Johnson. Somebody asked me if I thought he was gonna hold out for more money, and my answer is no. I mean, I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know, but I do know that if he does hold out for more money, I feel like the Raiders are very confident with the way they moved in the draft. You always have June 1st cuts right before going into preseason. The Raiders, I believe, I don't know how this is even possible, but we had the worst record in NFL, and somehow we sit sixth overall when it comes to the waiver wire, right? Doesn't the worst team in the NFL get the first pick at at the waiver wire? Isn't that how it works every year? I don't know. Somebody school me in the chat. Let me know. I don't want to look it up, so if somebody can look it up, or if you already know. But I always thought the worst team in the NFL got the first the first dibs, right, when it came to players on the waiver wire. Apparently that is not the case. The Raiders are sixth from what I hear. So five other teams, you know, get to take their pick of the litter of which guys they want and don't want. And hopefully just the Raiders have a different scouting report on some of these guys that are released than other guys. But yeah, so the Raiders, we have the waiver wire, coming up. You have June 1st cuts. You might have some guys that more than likely during the preseason, right, are going to be cut. You might have some guys that, make the 53. And then once they start putting their practice squad together, they realize that, damn, maybe this guy needs to be on the 53 and this guy doesn't. So you're always going to have that, right? Always, no matter what. God family Raiders, what's good? Salute Raider Nation family. What's good? It's been a minute, my brother. Appreciate you popping in, showing some love. If Cousins starts all season, Mendoza is his backup, will AOC be scout team quarterback or ask for a trade? I believe AOC, they keep three quarterbacks on this roster. I don't think he'll be a scout team. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second string quarterback, and if something happened to Cousins, it would be AOC before it would be Mendoza, unless Mendoza is ready. And like I said, to me, I would rather have Mendoza be in the third quarterback, because this is why. If he's the third quarterback, right, your practice scout team quarterback, right, doesn't need to be that guy running against the ones. You can put Mendoza out there with the second team unit and get his feet wet against the number one defense all throughout the preseason, right? All throughout the season until he's ready, which will definitely iron sharpen iron, right? Which will make this dude a lot more prepared to face the NFL defense when you have a defense like Robbie Leonard, who's going to be throwing all kinds of different looks at him. So I would rather have Mendoza as the third string quarterback, right? There's no pressure for him. If you're not going to start, you don't need to be second string. It just doesn't make sense. Put him as third string, have Aiden O'Connell being that, that guy that runs in the practice squad. Or not, or Mendoza, right? So there's a lot of ways the Raiders could go with this, right? And we might get to camp and find out that Mendoza is better than both of them, and they're just like, there's no reason not to play this young man. He gives us the best opportunity to win right away, and if he gives you the best opportunity to win right away, then you go with him. They might get to camp and find out that, man, Aiden O'Connell gives us the best chance to win, right? Because he's younger. He's on the last year of his contract, right? He's got something to play for. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Or they could very well, more than likely the case, go into camp and already have Kirk Cousins penciled in as that number one guy, which a lot of people seem to think that's the way it's going to go, right? It's already Kirk Cousins' job and it's his to lose, which, man, we've had that scenario here for many, many years in the Raider Nation, whether it been in Oakland, whether it be in Los Angeles or whether it be in Vegas. We've had that scenario many, many times where you bring in quarterbacks, but there is no competition. It's just a guy that is given a job. So I don't think Aiden O'Connell gets traded. I believe from a genuine, Christian guy and Clint Kubiak that I believe he's genuine when he speaks, and he says he was very impressed by Aiden O'Connell. Now, you don't move a guy that you're very impressed with to save $3 million when you don't know if your rookie quarterback's going to be ready, or you don't know if your veteran quarterback at 38 is going to make it through a game 4 minutes. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He was, 38, 39 when he played for the Jets? He played 2 minutes and tore his Achilles, was out for the season. So, it's the NFL, bro, which stands for not for long, and anything can happen. So I'd rather be prepared, than be scared. You know what I'm saying? Don't be scared, be prepared, right? And that's just how I feel about it. So I mean, a lot of people want to push Aiden out the door, and if he's traded, that's probably the best thing for him. But I believe the best thing for the Raiders in this quarterback room is to have Aiden, his intelligence, and that little bit of youth connection with Mendoza in the building. To me, that's just me though. Right now, O line is left tackle Miller, left guard Meredith, um, Linderbaum, JPJ, and Glaze. Is that official? Is that your opinion? Because I can't. The Raiders, if you look at the Raiders roster, they have Miller and Burford, and then if you look at our lads, they also have JPJ and Meredith. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't believe there's anybody that has a spot right now at all whatsoever. I know they have guys that they want to see on the first team, and then they have guys that they want to see compete for that first team. So nothing is written in stone for this offensive line, for any of the defensive line, for any of these players. Pretty much the only thing that's written in stone is Maxx Crosby has a spot. Tyler Lindenbaum has a spot. I believe Colton Miller has a spot. Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, and probably Eric Stokes. Those are probably the 6 guys on this team that I feel are locked. Maybe Jeremy Chin, but I feel like, depending on his price tag this year, if you could go another way, if it's not a big cap hit, right? Do you really need that, thumper in the middle if you're going to run a lot more 3-4 than people are expecting? There's so many questions, man. There's so many questions. So I know for a fact from what I've heard, and the little birdie in my ear said, bro, that's why I told y'all, don't be surprised if this roster is completely shaken up and they bring in a couple people, right? They might just be like, look, sorry, you've been here for a minute. You just don't fit. I don't want to say names, but just just bear with me. Bear with me. So if that's the case, then we'll see. But there's more than likely going to be some shockers when it gets down to the 53-man roster. And, they don't do things like they used to do where you had to go from 90 down to what, 73 or whatever it was, and then down to 53. Now it's you cut down to 53, and then you figure out who your practice squad is going to be, right? So a little bit different nowadays, and you get that gives you a little bit more time to give all these guys play time, throughout OTAs, to put them at different looks, to put them at different positions, to see their value. And then it gives you time in the preseason to see how they hold up, against other teams, against other situations, right? Are they in the playbook? Do they know their 111, their responsibility? Or are they guys that are like, yo, what's this play? Because we heard guys 2 years ago, there was a guy that did an interview and he's still on the team, and I won't name names, but he did an interview and said there was times where he was out there and he was looking at the quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, in the huddle going, wait, what do I do? Like, wait, where do I go? Oh yeah, that's right. So you have those guys on the team that, be it in Vegas, right, have other things to do than to be in the playbook, and guys that, get comfortable and get complacent and think, this job is forever, and it's not. So also agree Kirk Cousin is current starting quarterback. I don't think that's a lock either, my guy. I really don't. I mean, for right now, they're saying, yeah, like all signs are he's going to get, the reps because he deserves that because he's a veteran. But that once it starts, man, once it starts in Mendoza, if he keeps throwing spirals like he did, if he goes out there ripping it and knows the offense, right, and knows the defense he's going against, I don't see how you don't put Mendoza out there. I would not, I was very, very, against playing Mendoza right away because of Spytek, because of Kubiak, because of Tom Brady, every interview he's been on, and what's wrong with football. So I really, really thought that Mendoza's going to sit all of the year, or probably 70% of the season, if not all of the season. And now, when you hear Mark Davis say, we have a new rookie quarterback who's going to have a chance to compete for the starting job, um, when things like that slip out, right? I don't know if Mark Davis knew he was saying that, or he just thinks that he's competing for the starting job, or if he was letting the cat out of the bag, right? So when you have your owner of the team saying, when his interview, are you drafting Mendoza? I can't really say, right? But, face turned red, blushing. We knew right then he was drafting Mendoza. And now he's saying, well, we have a new rookie quarterback that has a really good chance to compete for the starting job. So when you have your owner saying that makes me question. And I believe the Raiders don't know. I really feel they don't know. There's, Spytek has said, Kubiak has said, we got to see what we have. We got to go out there. We got to get 7-on-7s. We got to get 11-on-11. We got to, start running some installs and see what we have in these positions before we know what's going to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised, man, if there's some switch up even at the quarterback spot before the season starts. We are first team in waiver wire our first 3 weeks of the season. Oh, so it's the first 3 weeks? Well, that's better. Teflon Don coming in to get butt cheeks clapped again. You must like getting your butt cheeks clapped, bro. I don't know why you always come in here. Always come in here, man. Dogging on my team. All right, so we are first through the first 3 weeks. Well, that's good. That's good because that means we get, the number one pick of the litter at all these dudes being cut and released for the first 3 weeks. And I feel like that's all we need, right? If we don't know, who we got, what we got, and who we're keeping by week 3, I'm going to start questioning this coaching staff like I did the last one, and the last one, and the last one, and the other one, and the one before that. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Buford over Meredith all day, my guy Jim. Heinrich, what? How you say that? I'm gonna call you Jeremy. I've already established that. All right. So he says Burford over Meredith all day. Let me know why you say that. Let me know why you say that. I know the 49ers have a very stout offensive line, and I know he started some games, but that was due to injury. But do you really think he's better than Meredith right now, or better than Caleb Rogers and JPJ? Because again, neither one of these guys have a spot right now, and they could be battling for either spot. Some of them could be battling, for the backup center spot like Meredith. I don't know if they're going to keep Will Putnam, right? They signed him to a contract, but that was before the draft. That was before they got a guy like Trey Zune that could come in and possibly play that position. So we'll see what we'll see. And him be third running back all day. Now, I wouldn't doubt that, but I've also seen some reports where a lot of people seem to believe that they keep Dylan Labe over Roman Hemby. Now, I'm going to say this. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept four running backs and a fullback, because that fullback could also, he's a tight end, right? So he could be your fourth tight end, and that gives you four tight ends and four running backs, and then you can keep Roman Hemby and Dylan Labe. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to go the other route, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Connor Hayward listed as a fullback, right? That halfback, fullback, and then you keep, the other four guys, or you keep three of those guys, and you move on from Roman Hemby. And the only reason I can think is you move on from Roman Hemby is if you're looking at his talent, right? And you're thinking about the young man and his future, and not just the Raiders roster and the Raiders future. Because sometimes with this young man, you have to do that, right? You bring in guys that are really good athletes, that are really good football players, but they're going to be, third or fourth on the depth chart. And do you really want to bring in a guy like that? But he was undrafted, so you have that aspect as well. So, getting to see Roman Hemby in the preseason is going to be big. I had him as a lock to make the roster, but hearing from some very respectable people that say, don't be surprised if he doesn't make the roster. That's the only reason I could think he doesn't make it, is if they just feel like he's not going to get enough play time or be used. Meredith was top 5 guard in the NFL under George Philbon. Yes, I know. He was also rated an 80 in pass blocking and an 80 in pass protection, which is the highest rated guard we've had in the last 4 years, I want to say. Rated higher than all those guys. Van Rotten. Who the hell was the other one? But yeah, rated higher than all those. I hope we don't know yet. A lot of time before week 1. Yeah, right. I hope they don't know yet too. Exactly what Raiders Ryan said. I hope they're not already penciling guys and being like, yes, this is the guy. He's gonna be the guy, right? I wanna see the most competition as possible. As far as PSF blocking and run grade, yes, and I preach that all the time too. Jordan Meredith 2 years ago under Philbon, under uh a Luke Getzey, a Luke Getzey and the Turners, offensive line. That's two different offensive line, and this man still ended up with an 80 grade for the season. So, that's fire to me, and I don't see him losing any of that form. Now, he had a bad year last year, but there wasn't a player on the team that didn't have a bad year, except for Ashton Jeanty. I mean, if you look at the stats. Burford is experience in the scheme fit with strengths and point of attack. Jordan is depth. I don't know, Arnie Garza. I think we had this argument 2 years ago, and I told you Jordan Meredith was going to be the starter, and he was the starter. And I think we argued about it last year, where a lot of people said he was going to be cut, and he made the team, but they moved him to center. So, um, I feel like I won that debate, and I feel like I'm gonna win this one too. I know Burford has the experience. I know I get all that, and I know they're paying him 3.5 mil. But Jordan Meredith is a fighter, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Meredith is the right guard and Burford is the left guard, and they go, with the more of a veteran staff. That wouldn't put it past me whatsoever. What was Jordan rated last season? Um, that doesn't matter, Arnie Garza. What was everybody rated last season? Find me an offensive lineman for the Raiders that had a grade over a 70 last year. I'll wait. They were horrible. They were horrible. And Jordan Meredith played out of position. He's been a guard his whole entire career. He was playing guard when he made it as a starter from a UDFA that was signed, release, put on the practice squad, brought up, signed, release, put on the practice squad. Right? Brendan Carroll was trash. It has nothing to do with Jordan Meredith. Jordan Meredith was the fifth best guard in all of the NFL 2 years ago. Now I know it was 2 years ago, but last year should be, should have an asterisk next to it for everybody on this team. If we want to go back and say, well, this guy won't be here because of last year. This guy won't. The only guy that we could really say that about is Geno Smith. like, I mean, Geno's the only guy that you can look at with his 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions and be like, no, he shouldn't be here, right? The rest of the guys, they all get a pass. Um, even Trey Tucker, who had 93 targets with 52 receptions and 660 something yards, right? Even he gets a pass for all those drops because he had Geno throwing him the ball. Now, normally, typically, when you drop half of the passes that you were targeted, you got to go. You got to kick rocks, bro. Find a new home, find a new colored jersey, right? Most guys in the NFL don't make it when you drop half of your passes targeted, right? And that was Trey Tucker last year. The year before was a little bit better. He didn't drop as many, but he dropped a lot. There was a lot of targets that he did not come down with. So, you know, we'll see, man. We'll see. A lot of these guys, they need a pass, and Meredith is one of them. I give DJ Glaze a pass too. I mean, DJ Glaze, he played very, very solid his rookie year, going up against some of the elite defensive ends. I mean, we played the Steelers, so he went up against yeah, whatever that defensive end is, right? I don't know. I just drew a blanket every defensive end in the league, but I believe he played seven, right? He played Joey Bosa. Um, who else did he go against? We played Pittsburgh. Uh, we played the Browns, right? So he went, yeah. Anyways, as a rookie, DJ Glaze, held his own, and I thought he was going to take a huge, huge jump next year, just like we thought JPJ, Jordan Meredith, um, Dylan Parham. We thought everybody would take a huge jump last year, and they all took a huge jump backwards. So, gonna be gonna be fun to watch, man. Fun to watch. I think this offensive line has really good competition. It would be Buford left guard or JPJ right guard. I'm gonna have to battle on that too. I got to push back. I think Caleb Rogers taking that step from tackle to guard last year, right? Because didn't he play tackle most of his career, right? At Texas Tech? Wasn't he Texas Tech? I believe so. So I believe he played a lot of tackle. He had to learn the guard position. And that's why he was not on the grass most of the time. He was getting a lot of his learning, you know, from watching instead of hands on, being on the bench. And sometimes he wasn't even in a game. Sometimes he was left at home. He was on the 53-man roster, but he was not making the 48-man squad. And a lot of people were very upset, you know, that he wasn't. So for Caleb Rogers, he's got the guard position figured out. He played very, very solid. One of the best players on the offensive line last year when he came in there. Him and Charles Grant. So huge, huge upside there. Don't sleep on Caleb Rogers. I got him penciled in as a starter, whether it be right guard or left guard, wherever they let him compete. So we'll see, man. We'll see. That kid is a monster. Which one? I wouldn't be pissed if Meredith plays like he did 2 years ago. I feel like Meredith can play like he did 2 years ago, but again, I question the fact that is he athletic enough to be able, to pull when we need him to pull? Is he athletic enough to get to that next level behind, fast running backs this time, right? Our running backs were a lot slower. I mean, a lot slower in Zamir White and uh oh my god, I'm just drawing blanks on everybody. Uh yeah, the running back room that we had 2 years ago, right? They were all slow. So these running backs are a lot faster. They get to the hole a lot quicker. But we'll see, man. We'll see. I think Meredith has the strength to be that anchor. Feel he's very solid in pass blocking, and hopefully, changing positions didn't mess with his mental, and he can get back to form. Because if he could get back to form, that means we could let Caleb Rogers sit for another, year or a couple games until he's completely ready. That puts us at a great spot. I love that. Who gets more touchdowns, Ashton Jeanty or Mike Washington? You'll have to pull up tomorrow for hit it or quit it. That'll be a question for tomorrow. So I can't answer that. But make sure you're here tomorrow. We'll break that down for, the new shit. Hit it or quit it. It's this one. All right, 2 seconds. All right, man. So yeah, that's where we're at. Pull up tomorrow for hit it or quit it. Would you hit it or just pass it around and quit it? Mike Washington is legit. Who is your projected starting offensive line with only three backups making the 53? Oh, that's easy. That's easy. If it was me right now, I'm going Colton Miller. I'm going JPJ. I'm going um or Meredith, best man win, whoever. But I feel like they're going to give JPJ a chance to see if he can play a full season, if he can be healthy, if he can eliminate the penalties. That's the big thing, I think. Kubiak preaches smart football. Don't hurt your team. Don't cost your team by doing the dumb nonsense, unnecessary stuff that has happened many times with JPJ in the lineup. So if he can control that, I feel like they're going to give him that chance. So Colton Miller, JPJ, Tyler Lindenbaum, and then I feel like it's going to be Meredith unless, Caleb Rogers really takes that next step and beats him out. But, who am I? So if they, I'll say it this way: if they go with youth, it's going to be Colton Miller, JPJ, Linderbaum, Caleb Rogers, and Charles Grant if he can win that spot. And then if they decide to go with the veteran scenario for maybe Kirk Cousins, right? They want to give him a little bit more protection, a little bit more time to throw. I wouldn't be surprised if they went Colton Miller, Burford, Linderbaum, Meredith, and DJ Glaze. So I'm gonna give you two scenarios because right now, man, it's just too early, and I don't know what they're trying to do. Best draft we have had in many years. I agree 100%. I agree. I mean, you move back two spots, you pick up a 25 spot jump in the third round. That was huge. They went and got their guy, obviously, because there was a lot of people on the board that a lot of Raider fans wanted that they felt Trey Zune was better than, and that makes me excited, right? I don't know if you can see under the desk right now, but I'm pretty excited. I'm just kidding. Brendan Carroll was a major issue. Shit. Brendan Carroll, Nathan Carroll, Pete Carroll, anybody named Carroll was a major, major issue. Gino had 19 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. He was ass. Preach on it. Preach on it. As for the rest of the team, coaching was terrible. Rick Dennison is miles better than Brendan Carroll. And Clint Kubiak's offense is miles better than Pete Carroll's, 100%. I don't really think Pete Carroll had an offense. I think he had a philosophy, and then he made guys run his philosophy and figure that out, and it worked fine for a long time, but it just never worked for us. Shane Waldron's system offense, facts. That's what I'm saying. Caleb Rogers, best position in college, right tackle, but he was favored more of a guard in the NFL, which could make his favorite position right guard. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I know he played a lot, mainly tackle, and they're moving him to guard. And you know, being asked to play from tackle to the guard position, a lot of people think it's not a big jump, right? It's not a huge transition, but it really is. It really is, right? You're getting a lot more stunts at the guard position. You got guys stunting from both ways. You got linebackers blitzing. At least at the tackle position, you really pretty much know who you got. You got the guy that's out on your outside, or you got to watch for a linebacker, right? There's not too many times you're passing or moving guys off, at least in the system we ran. So I like that. Miller, Buford, Linderbaum, JPJ, Glaze back. Oh, I forgot the backups. The backups will be backups are going to be Trey Zune, Charles Grant, and Dalton Wagner. I'm gonna call it Dalton Wagner. I think Dalton Wagner stays on this squad. Hi today. What's good? What's good? How you doing, my brother? The battles is Meredith and Zune for the left guard, JPJ and Buford for and Rogers battle for the right guard. I haven't read any of that or seen any of that anywhere. And from the little birdie in my ear, everybody's been playing everywhere, right? Everybody will be playing everywhere. A lot of these guys, like Trey Zune, is going to play center. He's going to play guard, and they're going to see what he can do at tackle. Caleb Rogers will mainly be playing guard. JPJ will mainly be playing guard, but guys like Jordan Meredith will be taking reps, at center as well, from what I heard. But we'll see. That's just what I heard. So none of these guys are penciled in to play left or right. I think, like I said, the only ones are the bookends and the tackles in the center position. The guards is fully up for grabs right now. They may fade JPJ because he's been the right guard and backup center behind Linderbaum. I can see that, but let me ask you this: if your starting guard is your backup center, is that not a problem? Right? To me, that's a big problem. If my starting guard is my backup center, that means when my center gets hurt, I have to move my starting guard to the center position, and now I have to bring in a guard for that position. So now I'm not just moving one spot, I'm moving two spots, right? Now, if your backup center is a backup, when your center gets hurt, you just plug in that backup. You keep your guards where they're supposed to be, keep your tackles where they're supposed to be, and you're not moving the offensive line around so much, right? Because continuity is the best thing for this, right? For the offensive line, continuity, play time, right? Cohesionness, right? To be able to bond together as that unit, trust the guys around you, and you can't do that if you're flopping guys in and out. So I believe whatever they put in as those 5 guys at the start of the season, they're going to rock with those guys unless they were just completely wrong on one and they have to flop with them. So that's my opinion. And for that reason is why I have JPJ as a guy that might not be the starter. That's why I have Trey Zune being that backup guy, because I believe he's going to be the backup center and the 2 guard guys. And then you have Charles Grant that can be that swing and be your tackle guy. And maybe you only need to keep 8 offensive linemen instead of 10 or 9. That would be a win-win scenario for us. If we could keep some of these guys on the practice squad and only have to keep 8. Appreciate you for the $2 holler. Hi today, my guy says Raiders. Appreciate you, my brother. Do you think Himmy gets the 3rd running back position? He does fumble. They also have a fullback. Like I said, from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a battle, man. There's going to be a competition. And if he beats out Lobby and they feel like they can use him in better scenarios than Lobby, which is going to be hard because Lobby is penciled in right now as the kick returner, right? There's 2 guys that are going to be that kick returner position, and then somebody else is going to be that punt returner. So Lobby's main focus right now for Dylan is to just focus on winning that kick return job, and you'll be one on that depth chart when it comes to that. So it just depends on how they go. Like I said, if they keep Connor Hayward as a tight end and keep four tight ends, that opens up another spot to keep possibly four running backs. Um, but I want him to. I definitely want him to, man. I think Roman Himby, just adds that 1, 2, 3 punch that the NFL would not be ready for. There's so many ways you can move them around, whether it's running a wishbone or, you know, even having Connor in there as two, or damn, a fullback and two running backs. I mean, you could run some crazy, crazy trick shit having those guys with that speed. It would be great. Current five would be Miller, Meredith, Linderbaum, JPJ, and Glaze. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I'm looking at JPJ's injury concern. And again, I don't want a guy to be a starter that you feel like you're really concerned about him making it through the whole year, right? And Charles Grant, throughout his career, has showed he can be a guy that's, dependable and reliable. And that might alone get you that spot, right? Because I believe Rick Dennison is going to be like, man, whether it's JPJ, whether it's Jordan Meredith, whether it's Caleb Rogers, or whether it's Burford, I really don't care. Just give me the best, most athletic guy, and I could do my thing with them. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that whatsoever. My guy D Money with the $5 holla. Let's keep it going. Raiders. Let's do it. Let's do it. Raiders. Shout out for the $2 holla as well. Appreciate you. Appreciate y'all showing love. I think that both Grant and Rogers start this year. Frank Weber with a hot take. Okay. I believe that as well, right? With Colton Miller, up and down. You don't really know the scenario. Is Colton going to make it through a whole year? Is JPJ going to make it through a whole year, right? And if JPJ is that starter and they really feel like, let's give him a chance and hopefully he makes it through the year, or maybe they just like, damn, Caleb Rogers and JPJ are very, very even when it comes to the starting role. Let's go with the guy who has more experience in JPJ and the guy that has an injury history. And if he makes it through the season, great. If he gets hurt, then we go with, the guy that was pretty much at the same level playing field as JPJ, which would be a great scenario. But I would not be surprised. I know Grant's going to play this year because I really feel they use him on the field goals, on the punt team, right, as that, swing guy or that extra guy in a jumbo package in the goal line scenarios. So I believe Grant gets, maybe not a whole lot of reps, but he's definitely that number one guy behind Colton Miller if anything happens to Miller. 2014, Derek Mack, Card, Jackson Johnson, Shelby Harris, TJ Carey. Better or worse than this draft? I don't know, man. Only time will tell if it's better than this draft, but it's pretty damn close. I mean, we got our quarterback, Derek Carr. We got Fernando Mendoza. You got Khalil Mack, right? I don't think, Karan Crawford is going to be like a Khalil Mack. Maybe, in a couple years he has that chance. As far as Justin Ellis, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we got, and Shelby Harris and TJ Carey. I mean, you got Malik Benson, you got McCoy. I feel like this has a chance to be better than that class. I've said it before, and I'm gonna stick to it. I really do. Won't be a problem because Rogers Buford will be backup right guard. If you say so, my brother. If you say so, I guess it'll depend on. I guess it will depend on where the best backup normally plays. I feel that as well. I don't think Grant will start unless it's at left guard, but I doubt it because Zahn Rogers likely backup right guard and right tackle. I don't see Caleb Rogers backing up the right tackle position. They didn't even play him last year at all in camp. He wasn't even learning that position that I seen. He was playing guard all pretty much throughout. And don't forget about Dylan Labe, right? So, all right. I think the running backs will be either Labe or Himby. I like that. Either one of those I'm good with. I think Dylan Labe makes this team just because of the, like I said, the kickoff returns. Um, had to have way too many nice to have way too many starting qualifying offensive linemen for a change. Facts, Frank Weber. Preach that truth, my brother. Absolutely. It is great to be able to have this conversation where you're going, all right, this dude's no way making a roster. Now this year and even last year, right? Last year I had a pretty hard time making my 53 and predicting the practice squad, but I was pretty damn close on all of it. So we might break that down. Earlier you mentioned Rice being released at wide receiver. He any good, or was he all hype? I think he got drafted to the 49ers, I want to say, was there. I think this was his third team. So I just don't feel like he was his father. And, if the Raiders, I really think that with Spytek and the way he believes in the culture of the Raiders and Kubiak, that if they really felt like, it was a toss up of him being the fifth or sixth receiver, they would have kept him. I just feel like he was probably more like, the ninth or 10th because there's 12. What do we got? 12, I believe 12 or 13 wide receivers going into camp. And more than likely, we're only keeping six. So they're going to keep dwindling down whenever they see, a position group that doesn't look like they're too comfortable with, like the linebacker position, um, the defensive line position, the offensive tackle position, right? They brought in Jada, they brought in Hemming, right? They brought in those guys as well. So, all right, man, it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes. I appreciate all y'all. I got to pee. My eyes are watering. Much love. I thank everybody in the building. We will be on tomorrow to discuss the rest, you know, what we think. But let me know how y'all felt about Ashton Jeanty in the comments afterwards. If you have any questions, man, get in the DMs. Um, you know, get in the chat. Let me know. Let me know your questions. We'll go over them on the live tomorrow if you have any. So, peace out. Much love. I appreciate everyone. Stay blessed, stay success, and always just win Doza, baby. Peace. Raiders.